So we're going to talk about the principles of design, or the principles of art, either way you look at it. There is repetition, pattern, rhythm, movement, contrast, proportion, balance, emphasis, variety, and unity. We use the elements in a variety of ways to accomplish the principles. Okay? So repetition is repeating a set of shapes, lines, or colors over and over again, a way of combining art elements so that the same elements are used over and over to achieve balance and harmony. So this example here is pretty nice. These are rectangles or very thick lines used over and over again in the circular motion, spiral motion, to get the effect of space. This is repetition in sculpture, so the artist has the silhouettes of a butterfly shape, and then they have glued it to the wall in a repeating fashion, and then what the butterfly is a texture, different textures. Repetition in life. So as photography goes, we notice this a lot when we're walking around, observing the world we live in. So here are chairs in rows, and as you go back in space, they get smaller, and they are repeating. Second is pattern. Pattern's a little bit different than repetition. Pattern is the combination of elements in a recognizable organization, a repeated form, or design. So here you have the flowers with the yellow background and then this white and red design, and it repeats back and forth. Pattern is used in all sorts of art. This is textile art, so this would be printed on fabric and then sold in Joann's or Michael's or Hobby Lobby. Rhythm is number 3. Rhythm is repeated movement, refers to a way of feeling of movement, especially with a visual tempo or beat. So here I would call this a line drawing, but based on how the line flows through the composition and around these shapes, it creates a very fluid movement. And because it's repeating, even though it's slightly different, it is repeating this movement, and that's what makes it rhythm. Rhythm in life all around us. Here is reflection of light off of the water. And those are different organic shapes. Rhythm in sculpture. So this cool structure here, based on how it's stacked, created this kind of hourglass look. Movement, used by the artist to direct the viewer's eye through the artwork to a focal point, creating a sense of motion. Movement is something we use all the time. I focus on it because I want you to always, I want you to always try to get the viewer's eye to go through your composition. So you do that by placing your elements in certain ways so that your viewer's eye is always engaged. This is a Starry Night by Van Gogh. Now he used movement with his brush strokes and how he applied paint to the canvas to make this cool texture. This is a movement in sculpture. This artist chose to try and symbolize or create an actual wave. Contrast is stressing the difference between the elements. Stressing the difference. Differences in value, colors, texture, shapes, and other elements. So here you have these cool pebbles, if you will, and then they put water on top of it, and then they put this slice of orange. So there's a contrast with a dark value and a bright value, contrast with colors, contrast with textures. Like I said, you can do contrast with colors a lot of times, so like the dark blue sky versus the bright yellow-green foreground. This is an installation, so that is when artwork takes up an entire room. It's kind of a sculpture. And so this is contrast and installation. So there's so much going on in the air, the space above, and then how it engages with the single subjects here is really interesting. Proportion is the relationship of the size of one part to another or to the whole. So proportion is something us as artists always strive to try and get it correct. Oftentimes there are tricks to how to measure out proportion and get it correct. So no matter how big or small this dove is, the head is in proportion with the wings, which is in proportion with the body. So when I draw it larger, I need to make sure I can use the head to measure out how big the wings should be, how long the body should be, and it's all about correct proportion. Excuse me. So, coughing again. So here, you have this subject matter on the right side. She seems giant or average size, and then there is the same person squeezed inside this jar. So proportionately, no matter how big or small they are, they look correct. Her legs don't look itsy bitsy or chopped off just because she's in a jar. This is proportion in sculpture, and it is just phenomenal. You can see the actual door here. This is a normal door. So imagine how large this sculpture is, and the sculptor did a fantastic job making it look realistic. And then this young viewer is a good example of proportion, like large versus small. Balance refers to the distribution of visual weight in an artwork. It can be radial, symmetrical, or asymmetrical. So this artwork is two hands. One is white and one is dark blue, black. And those are contrasting, but because the hands meet in the center and there's equal parts of engagement on both sides, I would call it balanced. So there's symmetrical balance. One side duplicates or mirrors the other. So these wolves, even though they're not the same, how the artist has split the circle in half for each to be represented is symmetrical. This is an environmental artwork where the sculptor put these rocks together, and then based on how they perceived it, their perspective with the camera, they were able to get a really cool symmetrical photograph here. Asymmetrical is a feeling of balance despite the artwork not being the same on both sides. So if I were to cut this rectangle in half, there's 4 trees on the left side and 1 large tree on the right side. But visually it's balanced because these 4 could maybe equal 1 tree. And it's a successful composition this way. Radial is design radiating from a central point. So here is a beautiful stained glass. A lot of mandalas are radial. Flowers sometimes are radial. Watches are radial. Gears, all that stuff. Emphasis creates dominance and focus in their work, where your eye travels to first. So one way to emphasize anything is to make it very large in your frame. So this is a Georgia O'Keeffe painting, so really all we can focus on are the flowers. This is emphasis in photography, so here you have intact eggs lined up, and that creates a repetition or a pattern. But then this one that's cracked, and the yellow contrasting with the white, is really makes you only focus on that spot. Then, I love flamingos, my favorite animal, flamingos. And then you have this funky blue one standing out. The contrast with the colors helps. Variety refers to a way of combining elements of art to create intricate and complex relationships. So this example is blurry, and I'm sorry about that, but it's a good example of variety of the elements. So you have your shapes, and you have your color, and you have your lines, And you have your texture, and then we have a giraffe back here, and a butterfly over here, and for some reason we have telephone poles here. So there's so much going on in here. There is always an element being used to create a more complex artwork. Variety with color and overlapping images. So here it's a lot of horses that they've overlapped. And then they don't just use a couple colors. There's quite a plethora of colors here. This is variety in subject matter. So the artists unified this whole piece by making everything a cube form, and especially how they laid it out. But then the variety is it's all different types of food. So you have mandarin oranges, and this is an avocado, and this is a piece of tuna, and this is a piece of bacon, and watermelon, kiwi, so forth. I think this is cheese. So there's a variety with subjects on this one. Unity, golly, sorry I keep coughing. Unity, when all the elements in an artwork look as though they belong together. The feeling that everything in the work of art works together and looks like it fits is unity. So here the artist captured a nightclub scene or a blues bar scene. So you have lots of musicians, you have a stage, you have people dancing. The way they unified it all was with the same color palette. He even has like blue on this side, blue on that side for balance. His technique and application and texture of paint makes it very unified. Similar to this in terms of materials used, it's black and white, it's charcoal. This is actually a print. And then he makes it look very three-dimensional with his value here, but then it looks very two-dimensional with the line drawing. It's balanced, same things on each side. This is unity in photography. So just like we did with the cubed cool different types of food. Here you can find unity in the subject matter. So these are all tomatoes, and that's what unifies them. They're not the same colors, but because they're analogous colors next to each other on the color wheel, they seem to all go together. So the principles again are repetition, pattern, rhythm, movement, contrast, proportion, balance, emphasis, variety, and unity. Here's our schedule. So we do not have school yesterday. You should be watching this on Tuesday. And then tomorrow's Wednesday, and I'm going to leave it that way, but I'm going to let you work ahead. Maybe look at the 4 that are due Thursday and Friday and start on one of those. Thursday will be repetition and pattern, Friday will be rhythm and movement, and then the rest of the week. All 18 cards will be due next Friday. All 18 cards are due next Friday. You still get a choice. You can watch my YouTube demos for the principles cards. You can design your own, but emphasize the specific principle. Okay? You might be using a lot at once. You know, your one card could maybe represent 2 or 3 different things, but you're just going to have to pick one and stick with it. Or you can do a little bit of both, a little bit of my stuff, a little bit of your own stuff. Hopefully you're starting to get comfortable and you can come up with your own ideas, okay? These are just some examples. So like here, this could be emphasis because of the eyeball. It could be unity because of the thick lines and the shapes. The right one is very fluid, and it could be movement. It could be, I don't know about balance, but the left one definitely could be balance. The right one could be contrast because of the silhouette and the colors. These are just other examples. So, for today, I want you to answer the questions. The discussion question. Email me if you need to. And I hope you have a wonderful day.